Hello all, welcome everyone. This is Justin and I'm one of the marketing manager here at Kelton Tech. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day and joining on this session today. And joining along with me, I have Mr. Dibakar Ghosh. He is the regional sales manager for the SoftwareAG practice at Kelton Tech. And I also have Mr. Praveen Changani, Technology Director for the Digital Connected Enterprise Business Unit here at Kelton Tech. And before we get on to the session, there are some quick house rules that I would like to mention. Audience today's session is being recorded and will be shared to you individually via email. And all of your queries will also be answered at the end of this session. We will plan to leave 5 minutes at the end of the session, and feel free to drop us your questions in the questions pane that you see towards the right side of your screen. There is a questions widget, and you can drop your questions down there. And before I pass it on to Praveen, I would like Dibakar to give a small announcement on the upcoming webinar for SoftwareAG. Dibakar, over to you.
Thank you, Justin, and welcome all. We are going to have an innovation tour participation in the SoftwareAG event in Washington, D.C. on November 2nd and 3rd, where we are one of the sponsors, and we are bringing along quite a few experts and people within the industry to participate in the webinar, in the event, as well as in rest of the activities there. We would definitely like to welcome and see you there. With this, I would also like to start a small presentation or introduction to what Kelton Tech is and what our practice in SoftwareAG is all about. So we were founded in 1993. We are a 24 years young company with footprints in USA, Canada, Ireland, UK, and India. Our vision is infinite possibilities with technology. We serve from startup to Fortune 1000 companies. We have somewhere north of 1,500 people in the company right now. We are ISO 9001 certified. We are at a level of CMMI level 5 at the moment. Just to give you an idea, we also have our world headquarters in Hyderabad, India, where we have 120,000 square feet office space across India. We have global locations in USA, UK, Ireland. We have a capacity of on-site training up to 300 plus people at a time. We have dedicated space for application development and training. And we have global offshore delivery centers in Gurgaon and Hyderabad, India. We have dedicated mobility and IoT labs, nearshore delivery centers in Dublin, Ireland as well. I would also like to give you a brief idea of what we do in SoftwareAG. Kelton Tech has been servicing the SoftwareAG community since 1997. With over 250 successful implementations throughout USA, Canada, Kelton Tech is one of the most trusted and sought after partner for SoftwareAG products and services. Kelton Tech's Digital Connected Enterprise is a leader in enterprise level integration, API management, and multi-speed IT strategy. By leveraging SoftwareAG's digital business platform with the ability to design digital transformation strategy, align your IT portfolio, digitize your process, integrate the diverse systems across your enterprise, provide insight in real time so you can take actions faster and improve customer satisfaction. Kelton Tech provides innovative solutions, strategic directions, and technology expertise in SoftwareAG's digital business platform for business and IT transformation, analytics and decisions, agile processes, enterprise and B2B integration, in-memory solutions, and crowd enablement. Kelton Tech is a premier partner and reseller of SoftwareAG's digital business platform. We bring definitive value propositions for our client. We have fully equipped global development centers and SMEs in the following space: Web Methods API management, Web Methods integration, Web Methods BPMS, Web Methods operational intelligence, Web Methods agile apps, Terracotta in-memory data grids, Apama streaming analytics, Aries business process analysis, Aries governance, risk and compliance management, Alphabet IT portfolio management, Alphabet enterprise architecture management. With our flexible engagement model, Kelton Tech can help you in complete implementation of SoftwareAG's digital business platform. We also have niche service areas like ESB reference architecture, proof of value, proof of concept implementations, customized and tailored workshops, application development, maintenance and production support, infrastructure modernization, and upgrade services, managed services, as well as project implementations and staff augmentation. I would also like to encourage you to send across all the queries that you have with regards to the upcoming webinar that we have in Cumulocity right now. We might be able to address most of them or some of them, and we would address rest of the queries after the session. And then I would take an opportunity to introduce you to Praveen, who's going to lead the session for the Cumulocity webinar. Over to you, Praveen.
Great. Hello, everyone, and thanks, Justin and Dibakar. My name is Praveen Changani. I'm a Technology Solutions Director at Kelton Tech. And as Dibakar aptly stated, Kelton Tech offers best-in-class integration solutions, enabling businesses and organizations on their path to a successful digital transformation. So our solutions and frameworks and accelerators not only help modernize existing IT systems, but also help build the correct digital roadmaps and strategies needed for your particular industry. And we do this by means of a lot of the different technology offerings you see right now on what we call our core portfolio. So everything from digital transformation and enterprise architecture strategy, API, SOA, ESB core application integration and governance, center of excellence, capability and solution framework building, BPM solutions, process discovery, high-speed in-memory data solutions, but then also big data, the analytics that go into that, whether it's traditional analytics or prescriptive analytics, streaming analytics. And then we offer at an enterprise level, SaaS integration, cloud enablement, hybrid infrastructure services for our customers. And last but not least, infrastructure modernization, continuous integration, DevOps, and managed service agreements for our customers. So this is a list of a partial list, I should say, of our customers by industry. We work very hard to earn their trust and to keep them happy doing some of the best work of our lives, as well as empowering our customers and their employees to do the best work of their lives using the latest advances in technology, but really using technology more as more of an enabler, because we tend to focus on a technology agnostic approach and really focusing on the customer's pain points and their business process models and some of the initiatives that they are interested in taking forward to being much more competitive. I think Dibakar covered this slide. Essentially, Kellton has been servicing the SoftwareAG community since 1997, and with over 250 to 300 successful implementations throughout the US and Canada, we are certainly one of the more platinum, business partners, and we also invest in non-revenue generating initiatives internally. Cumulocity is just an example of that, and I'll talk a little bit about why we have at Kelton Tech intellectual property from an IoT standpoint, and why we were so excited and happy to hear that SoftwareAG's Cumulocity product and platform offers the enterprise-grade monitoring and services and device connectivity that it does. So being partners, obviously, with SoftwareAG, it allows us to extend not just technical product expertise within Cumulocity, but our enterprise-grade solution expertise. So as you can see, we're also business partners with MuleSoft, SAP, and IBM. These are some of our core capabilities. IoT is it's really a disruptive technology, but in addition to looking at some of the latest, there's been a lot of hype around IoT, Internet of Things, but there's also a very good mature product portfolio that SoftwareAG offers, and us as premier business partners support. Everything from establishing business process center of excellence, doing process modeling, architecture, analysis, decisions, integration, everything from IT portfolio management to business activity monitoring. So given our experience in integration over the last 20 years, it really positions us very well, both from the standpoint of being a business partner and leveraging the latest in technology, IoT technology from SoftwareAG, such as Cumulocity, but also bringing our consulting experience from having worked at multiple different client sites in multiple different industries, and working on digital transformation imperatives for customers that align with their goals and their roadmaps. Okay, so a little bit about Cumulocity. It turns out that it actually Cumulocity started as in basically the innovation labs of Nokia back in 2010, and the team rapidly grew to about 100 people in just a year over, because there was such an emphasis on how do we go about in a seamless and operational way connect devices and applications and services without having to have multiple disparate systems. So there was a spin-off in 2012 by the management team, and then in March of 2017, which was earlier this year, SoftwareAG acquired Cumulocity and has embedded that very effectively into their digital business platform. So certainly over 100 plus customers, and some of these numbers are actually higher. They've been higher since I updated them, and growing rapidly. So let's talk a little bit now. I'm going to take a step back. I wanted to do a quick introduction to Cumulocity and some of the history there, but let's also talk a tad bit about IoT in general, right? So if you did a Google search for IoT back in, say, 2012, the top results would have probably included something like the International Oceanic Travel Organization. And, so a search for, Internet of Things would have produced a results page with a list of academic papers probably at the top, with no real advertisements or enterprise support and adoption. So 2 years on, this had changed dramatically. So in 2014, the IoT was one of the most hyped buzzwords in the IT industry. And IT analysts everywhere tried to basically outdo each other's projections for the year 2020. So whether it be from Cisco's 50 billion connected devices projection to Gartner's economic value add of $1.9 trillion, there was a lot of emphasis and traction that was being gained, and you started to see a lot of people taking interest in this because of the value proposition that it had. So until we reach that, until we've sort of, but it's still growing rapidly. So until we've kind of reached this point in the future, no one can really tell how accurately big these numbers are going to be. But one thing is for sure, and that is that the numbers are on the rise. So if you take a look at what IoT is actually driven in terms of a combination of what consists of an IoT solution. It's built around sensors and actuators, so whatever your digital nervous system is, with location, visual, audio, temperature, and pressure sensors, things of that sort. Those sensors are out there in the field, and they need to be able to connect with a multi-layered digital connectivity platform. So, and it needs to be able to do this in an enterprise-grade way, because now, when you look at some of the industries, I'll take, for example, oil and gas. Sometimes you get this, certainly, industry reports would indicate that oil and gas is one of the industries that's probably been one of the laggards, but you will see that you'll also find that there has been a lot of effort in terms of trying to catch up and improve not just the equipment, but the predictive maintenance around the sensors and actuators. So whether you're looking at something upstream, the actual determining of the wells and the drilling aspects and the gauges, or the refinery of the actual, and the mining of that oil. There's a lot of different operations, a very complex industry in terms of multi-layered operations. So bringing all of those silos to kind of work together is essential, from not just the standpoint of reducing cost, but interoperability. And so I will talk a little bit more about this and give you some examples. But that's very relevant, is that that the context is set at the beginning, which is you have sensors and actuators, you have the connectivity layer, the integration layer, if you will, and then you have the people and process. And the better informed your decisions are, which historically have been driven by data. Now you hear this phenomena that, of big data and terabytes of data and petabytes of data. So how are you going to start to extract that data, analyze it in such a way, and whether it's your sensors that are producing and emitting those events to a dashboard, a traditional dashboard in the operator in the operator room, where when a red light goes off, that means the sensor has probably reached too high a pressure stage, and a corrective action of some sort needs to be taken. Or you start to analyze the data and basically start to dissect the noise from the enterprise data that and from which you can start to take action. So one example is an instance, for example, where if the sensor is malfunctioning at in one of the upstream operations, that the traditional model is you would send an engineer or a technician to the well or the pressure head and see what's wrong, maybe fix it. But perhaps the technician is on lunch, and maybe it's going to take them 10 minutes to get from their location to the sensor. So if they make it there in time, they might be able to fix the problem or maybe take some corrective action. The not so good use cases that they don't make it there in time, and by the time they get there, that the sensor has not just malfunctioned, but it has it has gone into a state of error, and a system is down. So by having so that's what you would kind of call more of a reactive phase, where somebody alerts you, and then you call dispatch. Dispatch goes to that sensor and fixes that in the field. But with Cumulocity and IoT driven phenomena, what you're doing is you're being able to remotely take a look at your devices, your sensors, your actuators, and monitor their health by using the dashboards and the built-in analytics framework that Cumulocity itself has, but then also be able to maybe define some rules, some smart rules around those operations in your industry. At the moment, I'm talking about oil and gas, but you can imagine a smart rule that says, well, if this particular well reaches, so-and-so pressure, that you would turn it off, or maybe if there's a second or parallel sensor, that maybe you would deactivate the one that is starting to malfunction, and you would activate another sensor, the parallel sensor, and use that instead, or have another particular, a different well that you would want to start working with, and maybe shut that particular sensor down for maintenance. Those kinds of things you can. What you are able to do is by tapping into the health of the actual device, by being able to do predictive maintenance, by being able to issue software fixes and take a look at the bugs and the reports and the log files coming out of those devices and sensors, you are now able to make much more data, not just data driven, but data informed decisions. So when I talk about people and process on the right side of my slide, it also is integrating with existing IT decisions. So whether you are using a time management system, such as Workday or Kronos or what have you, PeopleSoft, think about how if a particular engineer at the field has worked 60 hours, and so instead of having to finish their long, hard day at work, they then come back and then have to fill some sort of manual paper timesheet or log into an IT system, do a swivel chair. Instead, what you could potentially do is you could have a process where they check in, they have a check-in, check-out system, and they're using RFIDs, things like bar technology. You can basically have an automatic login and log out. And instead of then having to manually update your time management system, which perhaps is then integrated with your payroll management system, and so that determines how much Bob gets paid if you work 20 hours versus 40 hours. You now have the ability to integrate all those systems together and automatically make the determination that this employee worked that many hours, and that should be the resulting data payload that moves into your payroll, and that's then how they get paid for that time. So all of these systems that we have built over the last 10, 15, 20 years although they have helped us make good decisions and solve complex business problems, we also now have this conglomerate of systems where they're not always talking to each other. So there's a lot of swivel chair, and that takes time away from operations. It takes time away from actually focusing on and getting better throughput and making the system much more intelligent and much more cognitive, as they would say. So that's what I wanted to just quickly summarize, that IoT is driven by a combination of these three pillars. And you have the consumer side of it, which is, I can walk into Best Buy and purchase a refrigerator, which has, the ability to basically tell me what's in my fridge. There's a camera in that fridge and can tell me, and I can check on my way home from work that whether or not we have apples by basically calling an API, which then gets transmitted over the IoT framework and over the edge services and gives me real-time information. Now that's more of a consumer-based model. With respect to enterprise adoption, what you'll see is you have three different phases that most enterprises go through. You have the first phase where you're starting to collect data and use it in the existing process. Basically, you want to start using data to drive your actions and your decisions. You want to improve some, your existing process, reduce downtime, maybe reduce some cost, potentially improve kind of the overall customer or end user experience. So that's kind of your phase one. Your second phase then starts to get into a little bit more sophistication, where you're actually starting to integrate your IoT solution with existing IT processes and IT systems. So I talked about the example around integration with your time management, or perhaps an ERP system that you're interfacing, or a back-end, a silo, which is at the moment is siloed, and maybe you have to interface or extract some data. So that's kind of your second phase, as you start to integrate. And in this, you have this notion that, am I going to be able to move my data to the cloud, and not just for the sake of data migration, but also having that compute layer, having the real-time or the streaming analytics, and giving me a real-time dashboard view. but then also being able to define those smart contracts and those rules where if in the event that a KPI is not being met, that I can now analyze at an operational level what devices are working the hardest at 50% capacity or 80% or 120%, and how do I manage that based on the demand, right? So that's kind of your second phase in integrating your processes and getting more value out of your investment. And the third phase is really where you start to get the highest amount of value, is where now you are envisioning new products, new services, new insights, and there's this theory of starting to conceive predictive maintenance algorithms. And I talked about how if there is a sensor or an actuator out there in the field that I could even before something starts to reach a failure rate or a traditional maintenance rate, I can proactively maintain that device and extend the lifespan of that device by being able to see peak operational efficiency and tweak those levers as needed. Okay, so and the third phase, as also just to sort of envelope this particular slide, is now you're starting to get semi-real-time or real-time integration with analytical tools, pattern analytics, and being able to export that data into data-driven systems. Because what we know is that data is, when we talk about big data, it's not just your enterprise data. It could be your structured data. It could be unstructured data. So when you start to look at that unstructured data and you start to decouple it, there's a lot of different types of data there. So not only do you have to look at aggregation of that data, assembling of that data, you have to be able to distinguish between the noise and the appropriate data points that you do want to collect so that you can make better decisions. And all of that information then has to be tied into the platform. In this case would be Cumulocity, where you can actually take certain steps towards not just traditional but also proactive maintenance. And so that was one example I wanted to share. At Kelton Tech, we have a tremendous amount of experience in also another industry, which is very important, is the energy and utilities. So where we have this notion of a transmission line or power generation, there's always this idea that whether you look at the transmission system operators that are faced with this mounting challenge of maintaining stable and secure grid operations, or all this despite the pressure caused by the growing share of intermittent renewable energies as well. So looking to the area of distribution and metering, we encounter what is probably the best known element in the intelligent energy landscape is known as a smart meter. So smart meter is a metering device that's capable of recording power consumption at short intervals, such as perhaps every 15 minutes, 10 minutes, but then also being able to transmit this data back to the supplying utility for monitoring purposes and billing purposes. So smart meters allow two-way communication between the utility and, in the case of energy and utilities industry, the metered electric load. And so that also then furthermore allows electrical appliances to be controlled so that their energy consumption is, of course, highest at times when energy prices are low due to renewable energy production, and that kind of basically tweaking of levers is something that we are able to provide. So Cumulocity IoT portfolio operates at the edge. It operates and it is offered in two options, either in the cloud or on the premise. The demo that I'm going to give at the end of this presentation will focus more on the cloud version. And it gives the customer the total freedom and choice in designing, building, and deploying they're upgrading their enterprise IoT platform solutions and services. So the beauty with SoftwareAG's Cumulocity platform is that it already includes a range of prepackaged solutions such as condition monitoring, predictive maintenance, track and race, as well as track and trace, as well as quick and easy device and sensor management. Okay, so Cumulocity allows Cumulocity IoT brings together the power of SoftwareAG's and the original Cumulocity products portfolio into a single, comprehensive, and leading set of offerings that enterprise customers can start to take advantage of. And what you see on the screen right now is kind of Kelton Tech's smart grid management approach. So I initially talked about oil and gas. I'm going to talk a little bit now about smart metering and in energy and utilities. And in this case, the traditional model is that you, for example, have a process where if somebody is, for example, delinquent on paying their energy bill, what happens is that the back-end systems detect that somebody perhaps hasn't paid their bill or forgot to pay their bill for an extended period of time. Maybe they were out of the country. So a dispatch force is sent out to turn off that service. And the idea is that when the customer or the end user ends up paying that bill, that information then is logged into a back-end system and it goes through a series of steps. It can generally take anywhere from 24 to 48 hours to restore that kind of power in a traditional model. With a smart metering concept, you have the ability to basically intelligently detect when that bill was paid, either through a third-party vendor or through the energy company themselves, and that immediately activates a digital workforce which can, almost instantly restore service. So those are the kinds of value propositions that you start to get into when you have a smart device or a smart meter which is tracking, which is sending data, which is and being able to transmit the kind of information that is needed in order for IT and software-based applications to respond. But all of that would only be possible when you have an enterprise that has that is retrieving information from the IoT devices and has proper workflows and automated integrations in place where service can be restored much more faster. You perhaps don't always need a manual workforce to go out there and do that. So certainly speed of operations, things of that sort. So remote management of meters, again, maintenance, So at Kelton Tech, we go through a process where we go through an economic analysis, monetary appraisal, the qualitative impact analysis, which is non-monetary, and then we go through basically the overall assessment. So utility consumptions, monitoring, the master data management. I talked about how big data then now starts to aggregate all this data and make decisions, automatic meter reading, smart grid management, and advanced metering infrastructure. So that's one. This slide also then talks a little bit about smart metering and what our methodology is in terms of how we first characterize an IoT project, from describing the project, the technology, what devices are involved, what applications are involved. So we go through a 7-step process. We map the assets into the functionalities based on your industry vertical. And then we also start to figure out what functionalities what are the benefits of perhaps implementing a much more sophisticated and integrated technology platform by then telling you that, these are the metrics that we have been able to observe based on your model, your business model, and here's how we feel there could be cost savings, there could be faster response time, there could be an operational or a competitive edge in your own industry, things of that sort. So we go through that process of estimating benefits and then comparing both the cost as in terms of the investment the modernization of the IT system, the IoT implementation and the framework that is needed, as well as the benefits, and give you that option to take a look. And finally, in terms of guidelines, some of the guidelines and the process that we go through, again, scenario definition, tailoring it to your local condition, because one size may not always fit all. So we always go through that assessment, and we do it in a very agile way. So think about it in 2-week iterations, where we go through the first iteration of looking at your industry model, your business use case, taking a look at what devices and applications and infrastructure setup you have, and then going through the sensitivity analysis, the qualitative impact analysis, things of that sort. And that's kind of how we, at the end of the day, give you that proposition that that here is how using technology and getting the most out of the devices, whether those are pre-installed, they need to be modernized, or we need to install them from the get-go. All of that assessment is something we follow a very agile methodology. And one of the things I wanted to do was now show you a device integration with Cumulocity. So let's see here. Give me 1 second. So let's go into the cloud-based integration and so of Cumulocity. So we're going to go to keltontech.cumulocity.com. Again, this is a SaaS-based application, so I'm accessing the cloud-based version of Cumulocity. And I'm in Dallas, Texas right now, and the device that I have integrated with Cumulocity is a Raspberry Pi device. So there is no, for example, temperature monitoring, things of that sort on that device. However, the beauty is I was here for a technology conference in Dallas, but my home is in Chicago, which is where my device is connected. So I will be using SoftwareAG's IoT Cumulocity framework and platform, digital platform, get to access my device, which is sitting in Chicago. So great scenario to talk about. Cumulocity, when you log in, has 3 different perspectives. You have an administrative view where you get to define the users and the roles that you want to access. You want to have access to your applications and devices. So I can define the applications. I can do event processing. So that's one view. I can assign users to roles. I can take a look at audit. What's sort of the audit around the device that I have connected. So, you know, here is kind of a history of dating back to perhaps September 21st, 2017, when my object, in this case, the object is referred to as the Raspberry Pi device, is created, is configured. And what are some of the things that are happening behind the scenes? So you can see that today, October 18th, I created a user called John Smith, or I updated it. So there's a lot of this historical information. And now I'm going to go into the device management view. In the device management view, here is where you actually get to look at what the details around the devices and how the device is functioning. So I'm going to click on all devices. And as you can see, I have a Raspberry Pi device that I have configured. That's the serial number, that's the model. It belongs to a group called Praveen's Devices. The registration date was September 21st. That's the system ID. And if I wanted to now drill further into that device, I can, I have a lot of information here, and I could set maintenance intervals. So how often should this device be communicating with the IoT platform? Do I want to set a 3-minute interval, or a 5 or 15, or maybe every 24 hours, depending on your business model? What sort of alarms have been activated since I integrated this device in the network? So you can see that I've had, you have a categorization in Cumulocity where you have critical alarms, major alarms, minor and warning system messages. Under major, you can see that I've had 3 major alarms, and The error message that was depicted was no data was received from the device within the required interval, things of that sort, okay? And all of this can be configured, some configuration parameters here, but also take a look at this in terms of control. So being able to remotely administer the device that's out there in the field is really one of the benefits. And as you can see on October 12th, today is the 18th, so about sometime last week, I issued a command to restart the device remotely. And it goes through and it talks about how the operation was completed, what the server time was, the status. And so you have typically these 4 device statuses. You have pending, executing, successful, and failed. So if something didn't work, Cumulocity will give you insight into that in a real-time way. In terms of software updates and maintenance, remember how I talked about being able to proactively maintain and remotely maintain your devices or your sensors or actuators, right? So here I see this is all the software that's running on my Raspberry Pi device. And that's sort of the current firmware on that device. It's Raspberry Pi bootloader. So what I could do is I could potentially install new software on here, or I could even update the firmware remotely. If a new fix or a bug was resolved, I could do a lot of this remotely, where traditionally you would have to kind of maybe take the system offline or go through maybe more of a traditional maintenance cycle. So those are some of the benefits. Let me show you also in terms of location. Now, I talked about how my Raspberry Pi device does not have, but the way I've configured it is that while I'm in Dallas looking at my device, which sits in Chicago, I have predefined the location of my device to be sitting in Chicago right now. And had the device or the sensor had perhaps if it had the capabilities to like a GPS sensor capability, as the device moved, that you would be able to track the movement of that device as well, and that would fall under more along the lines of the tracking capabilities. Another interesting thing is there's a lot of dashboards. I'm just showing some vanilla plugins here, but the point here is that I can also take a look at the operational uptime, and this was my availability from the last day, the last week, the last month. Obviously, you can customize these based on various plugins, but that as you start to look into this, there is there's a lot of information you can start to bring into the system and then take corrective action. So that's so we talked about the maps. And there are various device templates that you can integrate with. Notice how there are 2 users, right? 2 groups and 2 users, Praveen and John. So in Praveen's devices, so the Raspberry Pi device shows up. Under John's devices, there are no devices and that you control by permissions and identity access management. So in reality, depending on what view you're in, there is a lot of different information that you can start to access, and then also look at reports. So in terms of reporting, you can add various types of reports. You can add data point libraries and the smart rules that I talked about, right? So I can add a smart rule that if a particular device in the field is malfunctioning, that then send an email or perhaps a text message or execute an alarm based on the smart rule. So there's a lot of the rules definition that you can also do in Cumulocity. And I'm sorry, I realize that I'm a little bit behind. I'm running a little bit, so I apologize about that. But that kind of hopefully gives you some insight into the high-level capabilities of the product. We have a very well-established IoT team at Kelton Tech, and we specialize in various enterprise IoT, both delivery and adoption models. So we'd love for you to ask us questions. And sometimes it's also a matter of coming on site and maybe talking to you, bringing our team of experts, or getting getting to talk to you and learning about what your desire is, so that then we can help your business not just succeed but thrive. Also from a new model generation as well, because I think sometimes people think of this as just kind of an operational efficiency thing. It's more than that. So there's a tremendous amount of information that obviously it's hard to summarize in 45 minutes, but we're happy to talk to you. Got a great team that's available to you globally. And at this point, I think I will hand it back to Justin, and I really thank you for your patience and your understanding and us being a few minutes late. Sorry about that. Over to you, Justin.
Thank you, Praveen. That was really a cool demo on Cumulocity, and I hope audience find it interesting as well. So, Praveen, we have 3 questions coming up from the audience, but, keeping time in mind, I would like to limit it to, let's take a couple of questions and then wrap it up. So here is the first question. Are there any available predefined sensors or control capabilities that we have or come along with Cumulocity?
Yes, they are. I think the sensor library that Cumulocity offers defines a canonical set of predefined, sensor and control capabilities. So, as you know, a sensor capability describes the part of a device that can measure some quantity or control capability. So, environmental capabilities include sensors such as temperature, humidity, motion sensor, geosensing, light sensor, wind, speed, those kinds of sensors, are available to us.
Well, thank you, Praveen. And we have one more question. And is the rule of Cumulocity event language? It's kind of. Is there any event language for the Cumulocity?
Yeah, Cumulocity has Cumulocity has a real-time engine that receives all the data coming in from the devices and other data sources, for example, right, for immediate user-defined business operations. But so these user-defined operations can alert applications of any new incoming data and can create new operations based on data that's sort of coming through the pipeline. So this operation logic is implemented by what Cumulocity refers to as the Cumulocity event language, which is a high-level domain-specific language designed for IoT and real-time data. And Cumulocity event language, also known as CEL, it's got a syntax that's similar to SQL, the SQL language. So in SQL, a statement is run against a logically fixed database, right? In Cumulocity, CEL, Cumulocity event language, is a statement that is continuously running against a stream of input, events and data, and continuously sort of calculating its output. So the event language is Cumulocity event language.
Thank you, Praveen. I think that's it with the questions. And thank you, Praveen and Dibakar, for your time today. And audience, apologies for running behind and exceeding the time. So thanks for all your patience and being attentive all through the session. And we'll keep you posted on our upcoming sessions as well. And we have one more webinar coming up from the DC practice at Kelton Tech. That's on IBM BlueWorks Live. It is on November 3rd. So I'll keep you posted on that. And as well, I'll make sure that I'll answer all your questions over the email sent to you individually. And thanks again, and you have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. Yeah. Bye.